Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 24th. Today we're going to talk about the current weather, of course, to the Pacific Northwest and when we can expect the rain to come back into our area. We'll also take a detailed look at the extended forecast. We're also going to look at that East Coast storm a bit that's supposed to be coming up in the next few days. It looks like a pretty strong one. Looking at the current satellite imagery here, you see we still have our big ridge of high pressure here leading to stagnant conditions through the Puget Sound, Willamette Valley, in eastern Washington especially. There's still some offshore winds keeping the Oregon coast nice and sunny, and the upper elevations to the Cascades of Oregon and Washington are pretty nice too, as well as the Olympic Mountains. You can see that old weak tropical disturbance down there. It's still got some convection on its east side, some lightning still in there, but not any threat to land currently. Might eventually enhance some trade wind showers there in the state of Hawaii. So taking a look here at the inversion, check this out. This is Seattle. And if we look, this is about 10 a.m. If we look at this closely, you can see we've got cold air trapped at the surface here and the very light winds are showing up here. So if you go up above, 1,500, 5,000 feet, it's much warmer as you go up. So that cold air is just trapped there. And we don't have any systems to stir that up. So we might be dealing with this all the way through this week on into Friday. And we'll take a look at some of that forecast here coming up in a bit also. Taking a look at around the country, you can see we still have wind chill warnings for the northern states, some snow, lake snow effect, winter weather advisory still going on for the Great Lakes, and that heavy spray warning still going, heavy freezing spray warning. And we've got some winter storm warnings actually for the state of Alaska, and still have some surf advisories down in Hawaii. So looking into that briefly, let's look at that East Coast storm supposed to be spinning up here. This is the GFS ensemble. So this is the mean ensemble of that storm, the low pressure here, and its precipitation values. And you can see pretty populated region here getting some pretty heavy snowfall amounts as this storm moves up the coastline. And the European is also showing something similar to this. Look at this storm develop off the coast. Wide swath of heavy snowfall potential there, and look at this, just a bomb cyclone goes from 1,000 millibars to 954 millibars in what is that? I mean, that's less than 24 hours. What an incredible pressure drop there. That would be an incredible storm. So you're going to hear a lot about that probably in the national news here coming up in the next few days. This is for Friday night into Saturday morning. Checking that again up close here. Look at the intense storm right off of Massachusetts there, just off of Boston. And check out some of these snowfall totals they're expecting out there. I mean, in upwards of 2 feet in some areas. New York City would get pretty hammered with a storm taking this track. So we'll have to see how that goes, but the runs have definitely trended towards a more favorable solution for a big nor'easter moving up the East Coast there. So anyway, looking at some of the wind chills up through the North States, if you're ever thinking about moving to North Dakota or Minnesota, check this out. Negative 40s, widespread throughout the area there. Frostbite can happen in minutes. And of course, the lake effect snowfalls are still going on out there in the Great Lake regions. And that'll continue until those lakes start to freeze over out there. It's a national map of the radar composite radar imagery here. You can see we've got some wintry precip through portions of western Montana there and even up against the Idaho border there. So if you're traveling east on I-90, kind of heads up for that. And some of the higher terrain, there's some winter weather advisories out there for Montana. Now taking a look at the Puget Sound here. Let's bring this into now. You can see the dense fog established through the Willamette Valley and Puget Sound. Higher terrain is going to be nice and sunny again, as well as the Oregon coast. Some more fog on the Washington coast today than the past 2 days. Put this into motion, you can see some burn off, but a lot of that is just going to be the cloud layer rising off the surface. And so it's still going to be kind of a gray, dull day through most of the areas of Willamette Valley into eastern Washington. So then we go into Tuesday morning, you see that repeat of that dense fog building in. And Wednesday morning, same thing. Thursday morning, again, the same thing. It's like a broken record here. But eventually we're going to get a system in here, probably at the end of the week. Here's Friday morning, still some fog around, and then we should start to break up a bit onto Saturday. So next weekend, we're looking at that. You can see that frontal system coming through there. So, of course, dense fog advisories, air stagnation advisories are in effect. Willamette Valley, Puget Sound. And if we take a look here, look at all this freezing fog, a pretty substantial area of it there. Slick surfaces, reduced traction, reaction times. Winter weather advisory there is for some light precip moving through western Montana. So heads up if you're traveling eastbound on I-90 through western Montana there. So this is the National Weather Service Forecast Office, Medford, Oregon, talking about possible cooler, wetter return for the first half of February. See how they're noticing that. And they've got the beach hazard statements out for Northern California there for the sneaker waves. But this typical air stagnation advisories for the valleys showing up there. And this is why you just check out these winds. This is the high resolution models, a little bit better ventilation up on the higher terrain there where the inversion is not as prevalent. And you can see these offshore winds going on, keeping the Oregon coast nice and warm. And you just see the sound of the Willamette Valley, a little bit of gorge wind action there. Maybe it'll clear it up a bit tomorrow afternoon there for the gorge. That would be kind of nice for areas of Portland metro. But you can see the Puget Sound doesn't clear out much. Eastern Washington, weak winds. Not a very fun pattern coming up here through Friday. And you can really see it reflected in the temperatures here too. Look at the Willamette Valley stays nice and chilly. That's because of that inversion. Puget Sound, Eastern Washington. We are just locked in here. And you can see some of these offshore winds keeping the Oregon coast nice and relatively warm, especially the southern coast. Look at some of that terrain up there towards 70 degrees. Southwest Oregon. So if you happen to have some days off, it might be worth the trip down there, especially if you live in Oregon. But you can see some of this into Wednesday morning. Actually, might be some freezing fog around the Puget Sound into Wednesday morning. Check out some of these values. It's 20 degrees down there in I-5, 32 in Seattle. And of course, most of eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, Idaho, western Montana, any valley that has fog is going to be freezing. And look at the Willamette Valley, some of these chilly temperatures Wednesday morning. So freezing fog might be on the order here for portions of this week coming up. Let's see what it was showing for Tuesday morning here too in comparison. Yeah, some pretty chilly temperatures Tuesday morning also. Right around freezing and below freezing, many locations. So let's look at the extended here. We're getting some mixed signals here. Here's the GFS, 500 millibar heights, 18,000 feet. You're looking at the North Pole here. Here's Washington, Oregon, Idaho, North America. And here's the date up here. So this is UTC. We can go ahead and click that and put it 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And as we put this into motion, you'll see finally the system come in, according to the GFS, probably on Saturday night, Sunday morning. And you'll see that system slide down by this steering ridge is bringing this down into our region here. And the GFS has this dropping south of us, which is keep us much chillier versus keeping the system further north. And this would be a significant weather system for Oregon, California, all the way down towards the Bay Area, maybe even into Southern California there as you progress. And possibly getting some Arctic air into the region here for the Pacific Northwest as another polar lobe moves down on the back side of this. That would be well into next week. So this is well off into the future. But you can see how this ridge is prevalent out here. It's steering these systems down into the Pacific Northwest. And if nothing else, it'll break up the fog a bit as we go into next weekend and the week after that, provided this ridge doesn't somehow end up a little bit closer to us and leave us with more stagnant air after some of those systems move through. But this is way off into the extended. You can see that ridge start to get a bit closer there, but this is La La Land in the GFS, not reliable. And here is the GFS. This is the mean, the ensemble mean here. So it's kind of an average of all the runs. So you can see we've got the ridge bringing that north flow and very cold air into British Columbia. And if we put that, you notice some of these trajectories are pretty favorable for some good systems to move into Western Washington and Oregon. And put that into motion there. You can see it build up into BC pretty good there. And this is later on into next week. But the European is not so agreeable as the GFS with bringing that Arctic air into the region. Here is the European model here. So putting this into motion, here is it's kind of backed off that system moving through on the 28th a bit. And then it kind of brings it through on the 30th here. You see that system finally swing through. But you'll notice this ridge isn't as prevalent up here. It's got a nice form here. And if that would continue its development here and steer these systems out of the north, it'd be a better chance for colder air to get into Pacific Northwest. But you can see it more or less just kind of swings it through here. And we've got more of a zonal flow out here. And while we're in a trophy position at this point, this is not a signature for Arctic air to get into the Pacific Northwest so much. And you can see this next system is already breaking down this ridge and kind of throwing the whole thing into a bit of chaos here. So the European is going through a flux here. The 00Z still had some Arctic air getting into the region, but now this one is probably, the ensembles are probably going to show this not being so much the case. And here, let's look at the 850 millibar temperatures. You can see a bit of Arctic air up here through Alaska. Tries to get into British Columbia there, but you notice it immediately gets shunted off to the east. A majority of it gets shunted off to the east and staying east of the Rockies there. And yeah, this would leave Western Washington much more of a, it would still be a wet flow, but the strong systems would tend to not be, it would not develop here in the Pacific Northwest with this. So you can see the Arctic air is pretty far north there. It is still pretty cold up there, but this is not close enough to really get into the lowlands of Western Washington and Oregon. And let's take a look at that, what that means in as far as how the systems would look. You can see this first frontal system moving through on the night of the 29th into the 30th, some mountain snows, but some lowland rains, as you can see there. And putting this into more motion, you can see this. There's no Arctic high in place. Everything is off to the east, and we are just kind of in an onshore flow here with this steering ridge down here, keeping us more of a zonal flow. And you see that next system coming over the Aleutians, breaking down this ridge, and this ridge stays way too far north to steer Arctic air into our region. So it's kind of getting mixed signals here. Here's the GFS, the 06Z run. You can see Spokane, a lot of these ensembles went cold as soon as you start into February. But again, the European does not agree with this. We'll see if the European, flops back and forth again. See how that goes into tonight. Here's Seattle on the GFS. You can see the change to cooler weather as we go into early February. And again, the European does not agree with that. Portland, same thing, showing some cold solutions. Vancouver also. And there's still a few smatterings of some significant snowfalls in here. Anything 2+ inches in Seattle is significant to me, especially when you have Arctic air around. But you can see there's quite a few ensembles that don't have snowfall. Vancouver, BC, you can see there's a few significant snowfalls in there. European disagrees, but now you can see here's the rainfall amounts. This is getting late January, about the 29th, so this is about 5 days out or so, but you can see the rainfall will be back. Models are in strong agreement of that. It'll at least clean out our air and get this air stagnation issues out of here. And, we're only 2 or 3 days into it here in the Puget Sound, but it's going to go on for at least another 3 or 4 days, so you're going to be sick of it by the time Thursday rolls around. And looking here is the European as of last night. You can see we went through this warm period as these systems are moving through onshore flow, and then they drop south of us. Gives us potential for some cooler air to move in here. Quite a few ensemble runs had pretty chilly air getting into Western Washington last night. You can see a lot of 20s in some of these runs. But I have a feeling that's going to change with this latest flop in the model. So we'll see exactly what that brings, and we'll see if that changes back tonight. And this is just taking a look at the winds for SeaTac. No big wind makers in the immediate forecast, but if that zonal flow comes back around, that could change rapidly. So we'll watch for any systems that could bring some wind to the Pacific Northwest as we go. And so that's what we're looking at right now. We're kind of in limbo a little bit with the GFS and the European really disagreeing on the position of that Arctic air as it comes into British Columbia. And we'll just have to see who wins out here. The GFS has been showing it pretty steadfast, and the European has shown it at times, and now it's backing off quite a bit on the 12Z. But that's just the operational run. We'll check out the ensembles, may be different. Sometimes the operational run is just off on its own, and it's just kind of a wild card. And we'll have to see how that works out. So if you guys check out the shop, I have it on yesterday's video. There's a link below in the description, and I'm going to put some more t-shirt designs in there too. Some microclimate t-shirt designs like Convergent Zone, or for example, maybe the Fraser River Gap, or the Gorge Winds, or the Rain Shadow. I'm gonna come up with some cool ideas on that. So check that out and keep leaving comments. I'm getting good feedback. Make sure to subscribe too, turn on your notifications. That helps the page. And I might do a live stream tonight we'll talk about and see what the European ensembles brought. So heads up for that. And if not, I will talk to you guys tomorrow in tomorrow's briefing. So have a good day.